school leader.
Let me pause you there because I'd
Yeah.
like to focus in on the accountability question, and then I'll open it up to you guys after that. Diane, I know you were eager to address the question of testing today, and you were once a big supporter of the kind of testing that we've been doing in the schools now for many years, and you now have grave doubts about it. How does a community measure progress in a school, hold the principal or teachers accountable for delivering results? What is the mechanism that we could use to assure the kind of outcomes that we all want in the schools?
I just have to go back and speak to what Wendy was just saying, and it's the issue, the whole issue of the charters as these kind of incredible environments, and there are incredible charters, and I've seen this, I've looked at the research again and again and again, which is that 1 out of 6 charters produces not amazing results, but better results than the neighborhood public school. And there are charters that do that. Most of the charters don't do that, and close to 40% of the charters are worse than the neighborhood public school. So, you know, agreeing with Wendy, no silver bullets, charters are not a silver bullet.
Totally agree. It's what's going on in these schools, and there are traditional schools inside the system doing the same thing, as I relate in A Chance to Make History. I mean,
there are amazing public schools. It's one of the things I totally disliked about Waiting for Superman was, to me, it was pro-privatization propaganda because every school it presented was somehow a privately managed school. We have some incredible public schools in this country, and we shouldn't demean the whole sector. That's where close to 90% of our children are enrolled. We should be doing a much better job. But the charters have not found the magic bullet. It doesn't exist. And there are many people running charters who are paying themselves $300,000, $400,000 a year to run a small school. That is not replicable. That is just greed. Anyway, I could go on about that, but I want to get to accountability.
But can I actually just focus on one element there, though? If we do know that a certain number of them are working and a certain number of high-performance public schools are really working, why can't we focus on those? Are we doing a good job of focusing on those and spreading those lessons across individual schools?
You know, even with the high-performing charters, many of them have tremendous teacher turnover. Chicago, and now there have been many analyses of the Renaissance 2010 program where Arnie Junkin brought in lots of charters. They're performing no better than the regular public schools, and they're afflicted with tremendous teacher turnover. So we haven't found it. I mean, there are high-performing schools in America, and they're in different sectors. Some of them are religious institutions. But what you always have to ask is, are they educating the same kids? What's the attrition rate? And are they able to maintain a stable and experienced staff of teachers? To me, that is the key to educational success. But I do want to talk about accountability because I think that's so crucial today. Someone should turn off their cell phone. Accountability. What No Child Left Behind has done is to get our entire nation focused on basic skills testing. It's bad for, I think, all kinds of schools. And we are judging our schools entirely by basic skills test. And now our education system is spending billions of dollars on testing, on test prep. And we're not getting, even, the scores have risen slightly, not hugely, even with all this test prep. But what we find is that the more intensively we test prep the kids, the less likely they are to actually know what they're being tested about. They just learned they've learned test-taking skills. And so we see districts like New York City where the graduation rate's going up, and the test scores, by the way, have all gone way down because the state was lying about the accountability system. But the graduation rate has gone up. Meanwhile, 50% of those kids who go into the City University of New York need to be remediated in reading, writing, and mathematics. If they enter into a community college, those high school graduates, 75% of them need remediation. There's something wrong with the system that can get kids to pass the test, but they don't know how to do reading, writing, or mathematics. So it's a kind of an institutionalized fraud.
So are you saying there's no way to ever make testing work? And if that's the case, or that the current tests don't work, and if they don't, how do you measure performance?
I think that testing is an indicator. To me, tests are useful as a diagnostic. You use them to get information, but you don't, once you attach bonuses and sanctions, rewards and punishments, carrots and sticks, the tests get, people start gaming the system. They cheat. We've had cheating scandals all over the country. There was one just last week in Baltimore There was a huge one in Washington where more than half the schools in Washington, D.C. were found to have an unusual number of erasures on their test, all in the same direction, from wrong to right. But just to finish, what the testing has done has been to focus the schools, and this is across the country, so much on basic skills that there are schools today that have no arts. There are schools in this country that haven't had an arts or a music teacher in 10 years. There are schools that have dropped or reduced the amount of time for history, for civics, for foreign languages, for geography. This is not good education. So I started by saying my credo is I want all kids to have what I would want for my own children and grandchildren. This is not good education. None of us would want this for our children, and we're inflicting it on the country. And the more we incentivize testing as our measure, the more we say that we're going to judge teachers by student test scores, the more we reduce the curriculum only to what is tested. And I want to offer is when you say, how do you hold schools accountable? I asked that of the Finnish Minister of Education when I met him for lunch a few months ago. I said, you're the #1 performing country in the world. How do you hold your teachers accountable? And he said, well, we don't have a word for accountability in Finnish. The closest word would be responsibility. And we have such highly professional teachers. We only take 1 out of 10 applicants. They get tremendous support. They are professionals. They are responsible. Finland has no standardized testing at all. They don't do year-to-year testing. No high-performing nation in the world does year-to-year testing. Only us. The other point is that none of the high-performing nations use multiple-choice testing. And because this is the Aspen Ideas Festival, let me ask you to think hard about what does it do to children to have 12 years of multiple-choice testing. To never be asked, is this the right question, but to be asked, which one of these 4 boxes is the right answer? And I served 7 years on the National Assessment Governing Board, which oversees the federal testing program. I've seen test questions asked on NAEP and on state tests where there were 2 right answers. I've seen questions asked where the right answer was actually the wrong answer. And this is how we're preparing a whole generation of children pick the right answer when they should be asking, is this the right question?
I just think that everything you're saying highlights the incredible need for truly, genuinely committed people and leadership channeling their energy against this problem. I have to say, I've spent a lot of time in these schools that are literally changing their kids' lives, and in a meaningful way. Like, whatever the data says, they're putting their kids on a meaningfully different path. And these schools are run by people who desperately want to ensure that the kids who they have fallen in love with, who they believe have enormous potential, have the same opportunities as kids in more privileged communities. So, that's just what I would say. I mean, at the same time, I think all of those people think it's a problem if their kids can't demonstrate mastery of what you're calling low-level basic skills tests. I also think that every great educator I've ever met assesses their kids constantly. And, giving our teachers, good assessments is like giving them like something from heaven. It's like awesome, because you need to know where your kids really are in order to meet their individual needs and move them ahead. So to me, we should not go back to the days where we have no idea how our kids are doing and can delude ourselves and assume that everything is fine. We need to invest in better and better measures, and we need to ensure that we do have a culture in our country of true, genuine, deep, actual concern for the educational prospects of the kids in our communities.